Welcome back to the show. You know, just yesterday on this show, we talked about a trend that's going crazy on TikTok, quiet quitting. We thought it deserved a deeper look, and here's the video that kicked it all off.
I recently learned about this term called quiet quitting, where you're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life.
What a concept, right? Closing your laptop at 5 o'clock, only doing your assigned tasks, not answering your phone on your own time. What? It's everything that goes against what we've been taught, and that's precisely the problem, according to media consultant and labor coach Ed Zitron.
This idea of quiet quitting has really struck a nerve right now. Why do you think that is?
Because it's an insane term that means nothing. It says that people are quitting their jobs when they're still doing their jobs. And for some reason, almost all coverage of it is saying, well, the workers are clearly doing something wrong, despite them literally doing it right. And never asking, what are the bosses asking them to do, and why do they think they're justified in asking them?
There's been a lot of conversation around that right now about, isn't this just like healthy boundaries? So where do you think the term comes from?
So I think the term comes from an overwhelming anxiety from management that they're losing control of the workforce. Same thing when you had the massive anti-remote push 2021 through early 2022. It is this concept that bosses know without the office it's very tough to maintain control and get people to do more than they were paid for, because quite frankly, all that quiet quitting is bosses getting upset that they're not getting free labor. It's nothing to do. Workers are creating healthy boundaries, by which they mean doing the work they're assigned and not arbitrarily taking on more responsibility for no incentive.
Yeah. Which is, I think, something that, I don't know, at least my generation did a lot and was told it was normal to do. And what's interesting is this term has really caught on TikTok, where you see a lot of Gen Z, and that's where the term kind of got its traction. So do you think this is a generational thing?
I think that Gen Z and millennials have a generational awareness of the problems of labor, partly because if you think about millennials, I came to America in 2008, massive financial crisis. We saw another sort of recession within that period leading up to the pandemic, which was obviously a horrible financial crisis. Millennials grew up watching this very clear and stark suggestion that capitalism will always win, companies are better than people, and Gen Z are literally growing up in this. So yes, Gen Z is more than likely willing to speak to this awareness of, hey, this seems like a very unfair deal. I'm meant to be here 9 to 6 p.m., but people look at me like I shot someone if I leave at 6.
Yeah.
People get angry at me if I don't pick up the phone at 8 p.m. That doesn't seem like it's part of my responsibilities. And bosses are saying, hey, stop asking questions.
You know what drives me crazy, and I think it's so bananas when I look back on it, is I've been a journalist for mostly years, and there is a time before the pandemic, and this is right before, up until the pandemic, that if you called in sick, you would get a guilt trip for calling in sick.
And quite frankly, imagine flipping the script on this. I am at work and I think I would love $100. I go to my boss and I say, can I just have $100? And they look at me and they consternation on their face and they say, why would I give you that? I, hands on my hips, say, you don't go above and beyond for me. What the hell? This is quiet firing. I would seem like a crazy person, but it's the same thing. It is the same, just inverted. Bosses are just saying, why are you not doing more for less? But for the most part, capitalism has given up on mentoring and training young people and giving them a career path. So quite frankly, why would you go above and beyond? It doesn't appear that hard work gets you there.
With this idea of quiet quitting, when everything is at our fingertips, when everything, our emails, our text messages on our phones, how do we take that moment to say, sorry, Charlie, I'm out?
We shouldn't have to. And it's ridiculous that workers are being made to. Obviously, just don't respond. And yeah, you run the risk of being fired if you have a bad boss. It sucks. In my own company, if I contact anyone after 6 p.m., their time zone, I feel like I've stabbed myself in the chest. I feel awful for it because I would not want them to do the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And with clients, I've established the same boundaries just very firmly. I also happen to run my company, so I can do this. In many cases, it's borderline impossible for workers to establish these boundaries and deeply unfair to make them. Corporations, bosses, managers, they are the ones responsible. They are the ones who should not be sending a nasty gram at 6 p.m. They are the ones who shouldn't be contacting you on the weekend. And I don't care if you put, sorry for a late email. You're not sorry, you sent it.
Yeah.
Schedule it for later. These tools exist. You can schedule messages on Slack too. Stop being lazy.
How do we start this conversation with our bosses?
Show them every article about it and say this is wrong, and start an actual company-wide conversation about it. If a company cares about this, they shouldn't be thinking my workers are quiet quitting. They should be thinking, I'm failing at incentivizing work. I am a bad boss. Because that's what you are if you believe quiet quitting is the responsibility of the worker.
Preach, Ed, preach.